everyone, and welcome back to Hate Read. I'm Em.
And I'm Anna. Every fortnight here on Hate Read, one of us challenges the other to read a book that we think they will hate. This past fortnight, I challenged Em to read a very scary book, The Ruins by Scott B. Smith. And so, Em, I have to ask the first question of the episode. Did you finish this book?
I did.
Yay! I almost did it.
Not only did I finish this book, I really liked this book.
Oh my goodness, did you really?
Yep.
Okay. Well, this is a total 180 from the last episode then, where we thought we were dying.
What were your thoughts, your first initial?
I liked this book. I would never revisit it because I'm in this headspace right now where I can't consume anything that is like less happy than British Bake Off, because I'm just not in the mood for like thinking or feeling bad at all. Like I just want to be happy all the time.
Yeah, I felt like I was in kind of a good headspace for this book. Like, it's very creepy. I didn't find it particularly like scary, but I did find it very creepy.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it was just like it's starting to kind of turn into fall a little bit around here. Like it's getting a little colder, a little bit chillier. It was a good time for a little bit of spooky, you know?
Yeah, it was like kind of good timing for this actually. So good job, me. You're welcome.
Yeah, you picked a great book for this fortnight, which is kind of against the usual tone of the show. I don't know how funny we're gonna be because I actually really like the book.
Yeah, that kind of makes the episode difficult, but I guess like
there's enough weirdness we can kind of get into.
I like, how would you, on a scale of like 1 being like Queer Eye and 5 being, I don't know, like The Exorcist or something. Like, what's the scariest movie you've ever seen? That's 5. Where would you place this book?
Well, the scariest movie I've ever seen isn't actually that scary, and I was only scared because I was like younger when I saw it. And it's actually kind of a dumb movie, but it's called White Noise.
Oh, I think I remember that.
It scared me so badly that I refused to go on my paper route by myself for like the next month and made my younger brother come with me. But here's the thing. The reason that was so scary to me, and what I generally am scared by, is that it's like a lot of the scary stuff in that happens in the daylight, and it's all stuff that like would relate to the real world. Mm-hmm. Whereas in this, like, I am not near any Mayan ruins, so like I don't have to fear the plant monster. Was kind of how my brain was processing this. So like it was, like I said, it was definitely creepy. There's a lot of body horror in this, which so like kind of a content warning for anyone who gets really grossed out by that or has a problem with that. We're probably going to be getting into some of that later in the episode.
Oh yeah.
But I'd give it like a solid like 3-4, probably 3.5.
Yeah. I think, and kind of along the lines of the body horror, I think that was like the part where I almost dipped out, because that is like very not my thing. Like I could do like ghosts and shit, but when it comes to like flaying yourself, like that's kind of where I have to draw the line.
It was a lot. Which I guess, that being said, we should start talking about what actually happened in this book.
Yes.
Which, again, so we both at least decently like this book. So if this seems like the type of book that you'd be into and you're really worried about spoilers, this would be the time to like pause the episode for 8 hours and go read the book. So with that said, here we go. Okay. So this story takes place in New York. There's a young man named Seymour who works at a plant store
downtown
on Skid Row. Oh man, okay, I promise no more Little Shop of Horrors jokes. Okay, so
I think I confused the Downtown song by Macklemore with the Downtown song in in Little Shop of
Yeah.
Horrors, because I
Yeah, I
think
think you might have.
Downtown, I think that one's Little Shop of Horrors. And
downtown where they rip your slips, you go downtown. Downtown where the guys are drips, you go downtown. Where they rip your slips, you go downtown. Where relationships are no go.
I wish
Really
I knew
whiny.
more of that musical.
I just always like that part because her voice is so like breathy and whiny, and it's really you can't mess it up because it sounds bad. Oh man. Anyway, this book, like that musical, is about talking man-eating plants. Just get that out of the way.
And you think we're joking, but
we are not.
That's
100% what this book is about. Okay, so there are 4 college kids, well, post-college kids, on vacation in Mexico. Their names are Jeff, who is the leader.
Boy Scout
leader boy. Eric, who is the funny one. Amy, who is Jeff's girlfriend.
The bitchy
and
one.
Goody Two-Shoes. Well, she's also like the tightly wound Goody Two-Shoes one.
Yes, yeah. The prissy one, maybe.
Yeah, the prissy one, I think, is actually how Eric describes her. And, other girl. Stacy, who is the slut. And Stacy is dating Eric and is best friends with Amy, and they all decided to go to Mexico together. And here they met Matthias, who is a German lad who came to Mexico on vacation with his brother, who went off into the jungle to follow a girl who is working at an archaeological dig, and he hasn't heard from him since. They also are friends with a group of Greek tourists whose names they don't actually know, but they go by fake Hispanic names. Yeah. So one is Pablo, and he's the important one who will follow the group. The other 2 don't matter.
Don Quixote and Juan.
Yes, thank you. Remember their names because they will be largely irrelevant.
And it was kind of a nice change because this book had so few characters, having read a book that had too many characters.
Yeah, I did like that it was like very, here's the people we're stuck with, and that's it. So Matthias asks Jeff and Amy if they will go with him into the forest to go after his brother because he's like worried about him because of course he is, because he wandered away on their vacation to go follow a girl into a forest, which is like a bad idea.
Which like 100% no, I'm not gonna go with you if you ask me that. Like
right. Well, and here's the thing. Jeff is like, yeah, we'll go. And Amy's like, Amy really didn't want to go, but she decided to go anyway because Jeff wanted to go. And it's like, Amy, girl. Amy, we need to have a talk.
You should listen to your instincts.
Your boyfriend is making a bad decision here, and you need to tell him that.
Yes. And it was so rude because Jeff was like, well, you could stay here by yourself, like knowing full well she would never want to do that. And it was sad.
But also, I thought it was weird that Jeff was like, oh, you could stay here by yourself. And Amy wasn't like, yeah, you know what? Me and Stacy are going to stay here. And then Eric probably would have stayed with Stacy. Like, I didn't understand really why everyone just was like, yeah, sure, Jeff, sounds like a great idea. Let's go follow this guy
let's follow this
forest.
Basic stranger into the deep, deep forests of
with this hand-drawn map that his brother gave him.
Oh my God, so shady.
Like, there was a lot. Here's the thing. There was a lot of, like, mistrust of the natives going around in this, like, especially in this first part. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you guys, I get being vigilant in a foreign country, but maybe like turn down the concern about the taxi driver is screwing you out of a few bucks and be more concerned about like the really bad decisions your boyfriend is making, you know?
Yeah.
Like none of them are going into this like super naive dumb kids, but like their trust is misplaced.
They're like very American about it.
Yeah.
Let's just be real.
Yeah. It was like I kept being like, you guys are making us look so bad. Like, please stop. So they all decide to go off into the forest with into the jungle with Matthias, and Pablo comes with because Pablo does not speak any English nor any German, I would assume, because otherwise him and Matthias would be talking. And nobody in their group speaks Greek. So it's all just like, nobody understands Pablo. Pablo doesn't understand them. The only information they get is like through hand signs, essentially. So,
and they just like to drink together.
Yeah, they're just like drinking buddies. And but Pablo decides, I guess, here's the other thing. We get all the interiority of the 4 American kids, but we don't ever get Matthias or Pablo's perspective. So I have absolutely no clue what Pablo was thinking. Like, number one, he didn't know what this trip was. He didn't know where they were going. They suddenly start walking out into the jungle, and I guess he's just like, yeah, okay, I guess this is what we're doing now.
Yeah, and then like the shittiest stuff happens to him.
Yeah.
Poor Pablo. Pablo did nothing wrong? I don't know. but he got shit dumped on him.
Okay, so they're following this shitty map that Heinrich, Matthias's brother, left for him. And they get into the jungle. Well, first they like pay a guy to taxi them out almost all the way there. And he's like, don't go out there. It's not good. It's not good. Don't go there. And they're like, oh, it's probably fine. Yeah.
But which, like, then I have to question this guy that was like, how much did he know went on at these rooms? Because if he was just like, if you pay me $15, I will essentially save all 5 of your lives, or 6 of your lives. Yeah. Then that guy's kind of a shithole. But like,
well, I think here's the thing. I think he knew that bad things happened out there. I doubt that he knew the full extent of it, because how could he? So I'm guessing he just kind of knew, like, people went out there and like didn't really come back. And I think that because at first he's just like, just don't go out there, and he's like, so.
But like, I guess if I were him, like at the beginning, you look at the map and you could just be like, I don't go out there.
Yeah, I think that maybe he didn't realize until they got out there what it was. Maybe I don't know.
I think the taxi driver is the real villain of the story. Screw the vine. It's the taxi driver. Don't trust taxi drivers.
Is at best chaotic neutral, or maybe even just true neutral. I think he's just doing his thing, and it's like once he realizes where they're at, he's like, oh, I'll give them a warning, but if they're not going to listen to my warning, then what can I do about it? He's not gonna. But again, it draws into question how much, like, the people around this area know about this whole thing.
That is a good question. So you would think, though, that, like, there would be some communication between the locals and the Mayans, but maybe not. Maybe I'm just ignorant about relations between people there, but...
I mean, that's the thing. I don't know, like, how interconnected those communities were supposed to be in this book, because essentially they get out of the taxi, they walk through the jungle, and on the map it says something about, like, if you've come to the Mayan village, you've gone too far. So they get to the Mayan village. So there is a Mayan village in this jungle, so I don't really know if they're, like, hanging out with the locals and telling them about this human eating, the other locals, I guess I should say, the non-Mayan locals, like this taxi driver, and telling them, like, oh, hey, yeah, we have a human eating plant in our jungle. Or if they just kind of keep to themselves. You know?
That could be.
It was very unclear.
You would think, though, at some point, like, some of the locals would have gone missing and people would have gone looking for them, but maybe...
Well, and I think probably people went missing, and that's probably why the taxi driver was like, ooh, this is a bad area, people go missing here.
He thought it was, like, human trafficking, not...
Or, just, like, people... Just, like, a dangerous part of the jungle, people get lost in it,
Yeah, that's true. I mean...
Maybe he didn't know it was something specific, like a plant that eats people.
Your mind doesn't automatically jump to sentient plant. That is true.
It's the whole, like... If you hear hoofs, you think horses, not zebras. Yeah. If you hear about missing people, you think, like, drug trafficking, broke their legs walking through the jungle, not, like, got eaten by a plant. Oh, man. So they get to the village. They kind of, like, they continue to act like American tourists the entire time there. Amy's just, like, snapping pictures of everyone without their permission. They're, like, going over to the well to get water and wanting someone to come get the water for them and being, like, grossed out by the rope because it's slimy. And I'm like, y'all privileged fucks.
This is how people live, actually. And you're just like documenting their life like a totally insensitive person.
Yeah.
And granted, this book was published in 2006, so those were darker times.
It was, before we were so enlightened.
Before we were all so woke.
We were still napping then. Oh, jeez. Okay, so they're like, okay, well, maybe we missed the path or something. I kind of was skimming this part a little bit. It was so boring.
Like, I told you could like skip the first 15% of this book. Just know that these 4 kids make it to the ruins. You don't need to know anything else.
So they get to this, they find the trail by like realizing that they put some plants in front of the trail to hide the trail or something. Yeah. I don't know, whatever. They find the trail, they go to the trail, they go through the trail, they go and they get to this hill. And there's like a meadow-ish before the hill where there's like nothing growing. Mm-hmm. So they're walking towards the hill, and then this guy comes up on horseback from the village and is like, he has a pistol, and he's like, shoots into the air, and they're like, oh my gosh, what do we do? And they're like, we're trying to find his brother. And he keeps like making signs like, don't go any further, like stop. Mm-hmm. So they kind of like are backing up towards the hill, and then Amy, who is an idiot, is like taking pictures again
of people pointing weapons at them.
Of people pointing weapons, like, because she wants to go to the police with it. I'm like, girl, the police don't care. Like, anyway, so that's a thing throughout this book is Amy keeps like taking pictures of people because she's gonna go to the police. Yeah. I'm like, literally, you're gonna get eaten by a plant. You need to like reprioritize.
This does not end well for you, Amy. You don't sit. You're not. This book doesn't end with you in the police station with like an astronaut blanket wrapped around your shoulders because you're in shock, giving an interview about what happened. And right. Your picture's like displayed on a desk in front of you. That's not how this book ends.
Right. Even if the plant thing didn't happen, I very much suspect the police wouldn't care about this.
Yeah. They'd be like, we know.
They'd be like, I feel like you were trespassing in their like fields and shit. Like, maybe you shouldn't have just assumed you can go wherever you want. Like,
man versus nature. Nature wins every time.
So Amy is backing up while looking through her camera viewfinder and feels a vine brush against her little ankle. And the guy on horseback is like, freaks out and is like, nope, y'all gotta go. And starts like pointing them up the hill. And they're like, okay, guess we'll go up the hill. That's what we wanted to do anyway. Yeah. So they all start...
Which, like, none of them were suspicious that, like, at first he was like, right. No, get the fuck out of here. But then she stepped onto the vine and he was like, okay, actually, go the fuck that way. Like,
you're fucked now. Yeah. Although, also, can I just point out, if we're gonna be kind of blaming people, which I don't think the Mayans are really at all to blame. They're doing their best with this fucked up situation.
These kids, like, trampled all over this mess.
Yeah.
Like.
But I will say, it's kind of shitty that once Amy stepped on the vine, he was like, well, you're all fucked, and didn't like try to get Amy to go and stop the other ones, you know? He was just like, true. Nope, all y'all go.
That is very
Get out.
True.
He's just like, you're screwed. This bitch ruined it for you.
Now 6 of you.
But also, he was probably done with like trying to explain this to these dumb Americans who don't know his language and aren't listening to any of his warnings. So
this is true.
So the 6 of them travel up the hill, and there's a tent at the top of the hill, and they're kind of like, I think they're like looking back and seeing like more people ride up to the bottom of the hill, and there's kind of like more of the Mayans are showing up, and they're like, oh, I wonder what's going on.
They're having a party.
Very strange. They're having a party at the base of the hill. Very weird. Don't know what's going on. So they get all the way to the top of the hill. There's a tent there, and there's like supplies and some stuff, and they're like, oh, well, this must have been where the archaeologists were, and where like Heinrich probably came with that girl, but there's no sign of anyone. I wonder what happened. I don't know. He's around here somewhere, surely. And Matthias is like calling out for him and shit, and everyone's like, I don't know what's going on. So I think at this point they try to go back down to the bottom of the hill, and then all the Mayans are like encircling the hill and are like, nah, fuckers, you're staying on the hill.
Yeah, and they're pointing like bows and arrows at them and stuff. Like, you cannot go past this.
Yeah, and the kids are kind of like, maybe we should make a run for it, and then one of them comes out with like a full-on rifle, and they're like, okay, no.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is like a very organized effort by the Mayans to secure this hill.
Yeah, so they, is this when they find the body at this point?
I think so. Either this time or the first time, I can't remember, but they do find Heinrich's body, like, covered in a mound of vines.
I think it's at this point, because they go all the way up and they think Heinrich is still alive, and then they come back down.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at this point, yeah, they find Heinrich's body, and they're like, they see this mound, and they're like, oh, they realized what it was before they even looked, and it's Heinrich.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh gosh, the Mayans must have killed him for trying to leave the hill. Like, that's what happened, probably. And
Mm-hmm.
now he's here decomposing. It's weird that, like, no animals have come to eat his flesh. Like, that's strange.
But no, it was, like, partially stripped from his body, I think. At this point?
No, it was like rotting at this point.
Okay, because like they notice their hands are burning when they pull back the vines to see his body.
Because when what's his face goes back, when Jeff goes back
mm-hmm.
and does the whole circle and finds all the bodies,
mm-hmm.
at that point he's like a straight up skeleton.
Okay.
So like, yeah, I don't know.
There's lots of bodies.
There's also a varying rate of how quick the bodies get eaten. So. It's
yeah,
because some of them are like stripped of flesh in like 2 seconds flat, and then some of them are like still recognizable 2 weeks later.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I think it's supposed to, or at times it kind of seems like the vine is like preserving some of them on purpose, but
to like psychologically torment the others. But how did the vines know that Heinrich's brother was gonna show up?
Oh, how did the vines know Heinrich even had a brother?
Yeah, Maybe Heinrich told them.
They just had a nice heart-to-heart before Heinrich was killed and eaten by the vine. He was like, man, I just want to come to Cancun with my brother and have a really good couple weeks here. And we had to meet the stupid archaeological girl lady, drag me here to these rooms. And
all of my friends have been eaten by plants.
Yeah, so I guess just take me, man.
Sad.
Very sad.
Anyway, so they find Heinrich's body. They retreat to the top of the hill to the camp. And they're like, well, fuck, what do we do? And they're like trying to figure it out. And then they hear this like beeping sound from one of the mines. And they're like, oh my gosh, it's a cell phone. Someone has to go down and get it.
Mm-hmm.
So they get a rope and like, that is like attached to a little.
What were they calling it? Windlass?
A windlass, which I didn't care enough.
Exactly. I was like, I didn't bother googling it.
I assume it's that cranky thing that you crank ropes with. You know,
yeah, that makes sense. Like, this is how lazy I was. I didn't even like long press on the word for Kindle to tell me what it meant. Like, I just kept reading.
Like, well, we're in it now.
My imagination will supply something for me.
Right. So they have this rope that's attached to a thing, which is probably the cranky thing that you put ropes on, but we're not 100% sure.
But, you know, it could have been anything. We don't know.
Could have been anything. Could have been a turtle. I don't know. Flintstone style. The turtle just, like, pulls the rope up when they're done.
It's a living.
So they lower Pablo into the hole in the ground, which I don't know. I can't remember how they decided it was Pablo who was going. I think he just did it.
Yeah, he was like, there's a sound, and he just went, I think. Okay,
so they lower him down, but then they realize that there's still some vines on the rope, and it's like they've realized earlier when they touched the vines that if you crush the vines, they have like a sap in them that's like corrosive and it burns your hands. So there's still vines on the rope. So as it's going around the windy thing, that crushes them. So it corroded the rope and it starts like, it breaks off essentially. And Pablo falls the rest of the way down the hole and is in terrible pain.
He's just
screaming from the hole. And everyone's like, well, shit, we got to do something. So they're trying to figure out how to, no, they're not trying to figure out what to do. They just send Eric down.
Yeah, they're like, you gotta go down there and see what's wrong with them.
Again, I think Jeff's the one who's like, Eric's gonna do it, and like no one really argues.
No, I think Eric volunteered because he said he wanted to do something. Like he felt weird not doing anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because Eric and Pablo were friends because
they were drinking
the
buds.
one time. because they were drinking and Pablo saw the snake and freaked out and pushed Eric, and so they had a moment.
Yeah.
So they were friends. So like Eric was like,
bros.
I must go help my friend. So Eric goes down the hole, and it's almost to the bottom, but it's like a little bit of a gap. So he's like, he sees Pablo, and Pablo is like not in good shape.
But like he like jumps down and falls right on top of him. Which probably made it 100 times worse.
Yes. So he jumps down, and in the process he lands on Pablo and also scrapes up his knee real bad, or cuts it.
Yeah, gets glass stuck in his knee from the lamp.
He's like checking out Pablo, and he realizes that Pablo is moving his arms but isn't moving his legs at all. So he's yelling back up to them. He's like, I think Pablo's back is broken. So we've got Pablo and Eric down the hole. Eric can't reach the rope because it's a little bit too short, and Pablo's back is broken. And also they still can't find the cell phone, and the lamp goes out because Eric fucking fell on it or whatever. So up top, everybody's scrambling around and trying to help rescue them from the hole before nightfall. So they like, at this point, it kind of started to feel like one of those old, like, point-and-click escape room games. You know, where they're like, oh, I found a tarp, I'm gonna cut it into pieces and braid it and turn it into a rope. Oh, I found matches, better throw those down at Eric's head so he has them. Like, it was, like, very, like...
Use tarp with utility knife.
Yeah,
Use shreds of tarp with rope.
Where it's, like, all stuff that, like, maybe you would think of, but also you probably didn't think of and just ended up using the walkthrough.
Yeah.
Like, so they make more rope out of the tarp, and they also make a back brace or a
backboard.
Backboard, yeah, to put Pablo on since his back's broken. So they send Amy down with the backboard, and then they like realize that the backboard, because of the way it's connected to the ropes, like it's still not long enough to get all the way to the bottom, so they can't like move it over to Pablo and then put him on it. They're like, well, what do? Do we carry him over? Do we just like try to braid more rope? Like, so Eric and Amy are just like done at this point. They're like, no, we're getting out of this fucking hole. Just put him on the fucking backboard. So they pick him up.
It's like fold him in half, like meh.
Which is a bad idea. Like, they pick him up and he's like screaming in pain, and they're like, oh, this was clearly a bad idea, but we're in it now.
We can't stop now.
So they hoist him onto the backboard.
He was only a little bit paralyzed, but now he's 10,000% paralyzed.
He's never walking again.
No.
Like, you fucked him. So they pulled the other two out, and everyone is more or less safe at this point. Pablo is in excruciating pain and might be dying, but
definitely is dying.
So I'm trying to think. They
go to bed.
Yeah.
Because
they're tired. They're sleepy.
Yeah, and Stacy gives Eric the world's saddest hand job.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So this scene, so they're like all going to bed. Jeff is taking the first watch, but also so is Matthias, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're both out of the tent, but like Stacy, Eric, and Amy are all in the tent. And Stacy just reaches over and starts yanking Eric's dick. While Amy's like right next to them.
Oh God.
Like, it like goes into it pretty, like, it's very clinical in its discussion of what happens. Mm-hmm. But yeah, she jerks him off until he comes all over the side of the tent.
There is ejaculate in and around the tent.
Here's the thing. This ends up being a bad thing because of the plants. We'll get to that in a second. But also, it's just a bad idea.
Yeah.
To give your boyfriend a hand job while you're sharing a tent with someone.
I didn't understand the reasoning there about, like, I just wanted the closeness and the intimacy. I'm like,
right. I'm like,
now I know I've never been stranded at the top of an ancient ruin with a Greek guy screaming in pain because his back is broken, and like my friend's brother dead, eaten possibly by this vine that we're surrounded by. But I don't think I would reach over and give my boyfriend a hand job the first second we had semi-alone.
Well, your best friend is next to you.
Yeah.
Just politely trying not to mention the whole thing.
And then in the text, like, the author makes a point of, because we get this from Amy's point of view. She's like, maybe if we weren't, like, you know, in fear of our lives, I would have sat up and gone, bravo, bravo, when he, like, came to completion, which I think that's more awkward. Like, if you had sat there silently through the whole thing and then revealed at the very end that you were awake.
The time to say something is at the beginning of the hand job.
Not afterwards when everyone feels extremely awkward about it.
So, clearly the bad decisions just keep coming with this group. Oh, man. Okay, so there is a sad hand job in a tent. Everybody kind of sleeps / is going on watches and whatever. Amy goes out to Pablo at one point and covers him with a sleeping bag on his legs. But then Matthias later removes this sleeping bag. And this becomes relevant the next morning when everyone is, like, getting up and Pablo is, like, screaming his fucking head off and Eric is also, like, screaming his head off.
Oh, yeah, because Stacy, like, fell asleep on her watch, didn't she?
Yeah. I think at that point, I know she did later. Did she twice?
I think
Maybe.
so. Girl was just
She's
a
dumb.
space case.
This is like her, yeah, like they keep talking about how her defining trait is that she's kind of spacey and like doesn't really pay attention to things going on around her and how endearing that makes her. I'm like, that doesn't really make her endearing.
Yeah.
And I think, to be fair, as the book goes on, the other characters see it as less endearing as it causes them more and more problems.
Oh.
So Eric, because he has cum dribbling down his leg, he has created a cum trail for the plant to follow. Because it, like, eats up all, like, so its little leaves, like, get on top of, like, biological matter and, like, suck them up.
Mm-hmm.
So it, like, sucks up all the semen, and then it, like, follows that to his leg, and then there's, like, the cut on his leg, so it's like, ooh, blood, and starts, like, eating that, too, and, like, gets into his leg, which was really fucking gross.
That was the worst thing I had ever read about, I'm pretty sure.
So gross. So the plant is, like, inside of his leg, like, under his skin.
Mm-hmm. Moving around.
just moving around and eating him. So that's going on. So Stacy's dealing with that because she obviously wakes up next to Eric, or like she, you know, goes check on Eric or whatever and sees all this happening and is trying to get the plant off of him. And then in the meantime, Pablo has also had a plant crawl all up on him, and it's just full on eating his legs.
Yeah, it's like it ate his skin and muscles and everything, and
to
down
the point
to the
where you can see bones. Which was disgusting.
Yes. And again, a point where I almost had to put the book down and be like, I don't know if I can read the rest of this, because obviously I know what's going to happen. They're all going to die because this is a horror book. Like, why? I don't...
Well, not necessarily, because a lot of times in horror, you have the last girl, and the last girl makes it out. So I assumed one of them was going to be the last girl. Spoiler, none of them.
None of them was... The last girl was non-existent. There was no...
I mean, like, in the sense that one of them lived longer than the others, yes. But in the sense that one of them got out, no.
Yeah, that's true.
So, Matthias and Jeff, I think, go and deal with the Pablo situation and pull all of the little plants off of him. And Stacy primarily deals with the Eric situation and pulls the plants off of him. And I think Matthias runs back into the tent at some point and helps her out. Because Matthias is the most competent person in this group by far.
Yeah, Jeff thinks he is, but it's really Matthias.
Jeff, here's the thing. If this was like a typical horror movie, and in a lot of ways it is a typical horror, but this would be the breakdown, right? It would be, and they kind of go into this when they're talking about like, oh, when we get out of here, they're going to make a movie of us, and this is how they'll change the characters. But it would be Eric would be the clown who dies first to let the audience know that there's something wrong. Stacy would be the one who dies next because she's the slut, and sluts have to die early in horror movies. That's the rule. To be clear, I'm using the term slut because they use it in the book a lot to talk about this trope.
We're okay.
Not because I actually think Stacy is a slut. Like, just to be clear. Then Matthias, they say he would be the villain, but he wouldn't. He would be the, like, outsider guy who comes into the group and has all of the knowledge and is leading them, like, through safely, but then dies horribly. Like, so he would be, like, number 3. And then it would be Jeff, because Jeff would be the false hero, and then Amy would be the last girl, is how this would break down. Yes. So if you're familiar with horror tropes, that's all of their characters, essentially, in a nutshell. That's not how their death order breaks down in this book, though. But yeah, so they rescue the 2 guys. Pablo, I guess, I don't know, Pablo's basically a red shirt, but he doesn't have a character in this anyway.
Yeah,
so,
he was,
Because from this point on, Pablo's just, like, drifting in and out of consciousness, essentially. So he doesn't really...
And sitting in his own excrement.
Yeah, they talk about that a lot, and I'm like, clean him up.
They talk a lot about... I guess because, like, the plant likes bodily functions, so...
Yeah, but they were doing it before.
Yeah, before we knew about that, they were like...
Before they got to the plant... There was a lot of there's like one scene very early on when they're walking through the jungle where like one of them goes out to like go pee, and they like describe it like in detail, and they're like, and it splished and splashed and the flies were buzzing about, and I'm like, why are we doing this? And then we get all of the pee talk later when we first get onto the hill, because Jeff, who's like a know-it-all survivalist, is like, okay, we're gonna save our pee. Everybody pee in this bucket. Like, it's fine. Everybody pee in and I'm like, Jeff, and he's like, just so, like, there's just a lot of talking about people peeing, and I don't.
Yeah, it was too much.
And eventually, like, yeah, like you said, eventually it was like, oh, yeah, okay, so the plant likes basically all organic matter, including blood and semen and vomit, but I don't know, did the plant ever eat anyone's pee?
No, because it definitely would have taken that bottle away the first chance it got, because they just left it sitting somewhere. So
yeah, because the plant starts fucking with them pretty hard.
Or like, you know what it should have done is like put a little vine inside of there, and then when someone was peeing in it, well,
yeah.
I should have wrote this book.
Jeff goes down to the base of the hill because they essentially decide that they need someone to watch Pablo, so someone's on that duty, and then someone has to watch the base of the hill because they're expecting Pablo's friends to come after him because he left them a note and a map to this place. So they're like, we'll wait till Pablo's friends get here. We'll tell them like to go get help, even though we don't speak their language and they don't speak our language, and the only person who does speak their language is currently like paralyzed and also like half eaten by a plant. So one of them has to stay with Pablo. One of them has to go down to the base and like walk around and keep a lookout for the Greeks.
Yes.
Which Jeff goes down there first because his first plan is to just put a sign up. And this was actually all before the plants attacked because, Jeff was down there when this was happening. That's what it was.
Oh, right.
Yeah, because so Jeff's down at the base trying to put a sign up while they're all dealing with the plants eating legs and stuff. And then he's looking and the Mayans aren't like doing anything. They're not like acting aggressively or anything. He's like, it's so weird that they just seem to want to keep us here, but they're acting like bored, like they've seen this all before. And then he sees like another mound and he uncovers another dead body and he walks around the whole base of the hill and he finds all these different dead bodies. And he gets back to his sign and the plant has taken the sign, like taken it into its plant mass and eaten the paper parts of it, essentially, and left the metal. So Jeff has realized the plant is alive at this point, and he like throws a pebble and the plant moves, and then he throws another one and the plant doesn't move. So like he realizes the plant learns and can think. So he goes back up to the top of the hill and comes across all this chaos with Pablo and Eric having various plant leg difficulties. So then they're like, Jeff is like, let's cut Pablo's legs off. And he gets to that like realization real quick.
With a lot of his grossest decisions, he comes to them very quickly.
Yes. He like his first, like if Jeff comes up with a plan, that is the plan Jeff is going with.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff is not going to try to brainstorm a plan B. He's like,
no.
Oh, I had a great idea. Let's cut Pablo's legs off.
Yeah.
And Matthias is like, maybe we shouldn't do that because he'll probably go into shock and die. And Jeff is like, no. Let me explain to you how good of an idea it is to cut Pablo's legs off. And at one point, it says something about how he wants to cut Pablo's legs off. And I'm like, what? Is Jeff a psychopath?
I don't know. I feel like he just wanted to be in control so much that he would go to any length to assert his dominance over the other males.
If you're at the point where you're like, I need to cut this man's legs off to prove my dominance, you need to, like, take a step back.
Oh, gosh. Well, and I mean, it's essentially because, like, from the first moment that they knew they were trapped up there, and everyone was like, well, Pablo's friends will come. He was like, no, they won't. They won't come. They're not going to be here.
They definitely won't come. They're not going to be here. We're going to have to live on this mountain. Like, Jeff is 100% that kid who read, like, Hatchet.
Oh, yes.
And was like, I could do this. And then spent the rest of his life, like, trying to prove that correct. And he's like, this is my chance. I'm going to be the next Hatchet.
I'm going to be Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant.
Yeah.
And then to kind of go along with, like, the other Greeks are coming theory, though, that the others were, like, so reliant on, Pablo left them a map. That was a copy of a map. That was a copy of a map that was hand-drawn by an archaeologist. Like, how were they so certain anyone would show up?
We know that the first map wasn't very good because they couldn't really find the place.
Yeah.
I mean, Jeff was a mess for being like, no, they definitely won't find us. But obviously, like, Amy, who's like, they're coming. They're going to get us. We're going to be fine. Like, obviously, she was in a lot of denial.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Matthias, who's just like, well, we're going to die or we aren't, was definitely the best of the group.
Yep. Yep.
Jeff decides that they'll put it to a vote. And it's, so it's like him, Matthias is like, no, I don't want to cut his legs off. Jeff is like, yes, I want to cut his legs off. Then you've got Eric and Stacy, who they're trying to convince. Mm-hmm. Amy is at the base of the hill in charge of Greek Watch. Jeff is like, Stacy's like, well, doesn't Amy get a vote? And Jeff's like, well, she'll get a vote if it's a tie. So Eric is like, yeah, let's cut his legs off. We got to get the plant out. Because Eric believes that the plant is still living inside of him. Mm-hmm. He thinks that part of it broke off when they pulled it out. So he's like, I can feel it. I can feel it crawling around on my stomach, on my chest. Like, so he's going insane. Mm-hmm.
Which, like, I totally thought that, like, the vines were actually, like, so far inside of him that they were pretending to be Eric and that he was just gonna, like, burst open and be vines.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought
that was gonna happen too.
I mean, what happened was way worse, in my opinion, but
I kind of think, like, the vines were controlling his mind to some extent.
Yeah, I would believe that.
Because he was, like, real quick to jump on board the cut his legs off plan.
Yes. A lot of the pro-plant plans were very, like, Eric was like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. A lot of the plans that seemed to eventually help the plants in some way, Eric seemed to be really on board with real quick. Mm-hmm. So I think there was some brain activity or some mind control activity going on there, but it's not made explicit. Yeah. But so Eric votes yay on the cut his fucking legs off plan. Stacy is like, this part is all from Stacy's perspective, and she's like, I don't want to cut his legs off. I think that's a bad idea. But also, Jeff and Eric are voting yes, and Amy's not here, so I guess I'll just vote yes.
She's so dumb. She's so
dumb. So she votes yes, but then immediately goes to get Amy so Amy can stop them from cutting his legs off because Stacy is a dum-dum.
She just drives me insane. Like, the characterization of the women at some points in this novel, I'm just like, why did you make them so ineffective? I don't understand.
I mean, this seemed like, here's the other thing. In addition to, like, an escape room game, this seemed a lot like a survival video game that might be, like, made now. But it would be a very, very difficult one where there is, like, maybe one path where all of your people don't die. And in every other scenario, you're all gonna die. Like, you know? Like, so...
It's like when I played Until Dawn, and then when you played Until Dawn, where I saved everyone, and M killed, like, everyone but 2 people.
I saved 2 people! Yeah, that was kind of the vibe I was getting from this book. Was like Until Dawn.
Yeah, yeah.
Matthias and Jeff begin the process of cutting off Pablo's fucking legs. Amy is told by Stacy that they plan on cutting Pablo's legs off, so she comes running up the hill and arrives after they've cut off Pablo's fucking legs.
And it's from Eric's point of view, and Eric's like, I'm so hungry, that smells good, I want to eat it.
Oh, yeah, which also, I was like, okay, plant man.
Yes, he's definitely been controlled by the plant.
Yeah, he's essentially the plant at this point. So, Pablo's legs get cut off, but Pablo lives to see another day. And I remember the things that happened, but I'm trying to remember the order that they happen in. I think Amy's next, right?
The cell phone rings again.
Oh, right.
Mm-hmm.
So the cell phone rings again. And they're like, we gotta get that cell phone. That's the only way.
Which, like, if this book were to happen today, like, no one would have fallen for that, because we'd be like, guys, It's been over 24 hours. That phone is dead. There's no way the phone is still ringing.
This is nonsense. This plant is trying to trick me.
But no, someone's got their, like, Nokia brick down there, and it's been ringing for 24 days.
And also, when they're down there the first time, they're like, oh, shouldn't the phone be lighting up? It's not. That's so weird. I'm like, there is no phone.
There is no phone. Yeah, like, who would be calling it that frequently at this point?
I mean, because they eventually, so they go down the mine shaft, Jeff and Amy, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Yeah. And they are looking for the phone. Oh, and they have some tequila that was in Pablo's pack, because they've gotten all their rations together from the little bits and pieces that they brought with, and the only thing Pablo brought were like 3 packs of saltine crackers and some bottles of tequila, because Pablo is a party animal. So they
clearly didn't understand what they were going to do, or else he might have packed a little bit more intelligently.
Or maybe not, who knows.
Yeah.
So they take the tequila, and they're like, they make a torch out of it, essentially, and they're looking around for the phone. And Amy's like, I hear it, it's over this way. And she, like, goes down a separate shaft. And Jeff's like, Amy, stop. Amy, you dumbass, please stop. And Amy's like, what? And he's like, there's no phone. There's clearly no phone. There's never been a phone. And they realize that the plant is making a phone noise. Like, it has learned to mimic phone noises.
Yes.
And it is trying to lure them so they will fall down another hole, and the plant can eat them. Which, honestly, I didn't understand why the plant didn't just eat them this whole time. Like, it seemed to be pretty fast-moving. Like, I don't know. I guess it just enjoys psychologically tormenting people.
I don't know. It didn't take Pablo when he was down there.
Yeah, it had plenty of opportunities to eat Pablo.
Yeah.
I'm sure if we, like, followed along, there's some logical rule of, like, when it can and can't eat you. But it was not.
It only eats at night.
Right. No, because it definitely ate during the day.
Yeah, definitely ate during the day. I don't know.
And it's not like, oh, it can only eat you, like it can only move when people can't see it or something. Like,
because they always see it move.
Because they always see it moving around and, like, coming and eating their vomit and stuff.
Ugh.
Yeah. So they go back up, but not before Jeff makes a Molotov cocktail and throws it at the plant. And the plant seems to not like fire, and I kind of assumed that was going to be how they solved the whole thing, was, like, burning it to the ground.
Light the entire hill on fire? Why hasn't anyone done that? Why hasn't anyone just, like, continuously thrown fire at it?
Right. They speculate, like, Matthias and Jeff speculate a little bit, because they are like, why did the Mayans allow this to happen? Like, because they realize that the circle that's surrounding the hill where nothing is growing has been salted. Mm-hmm. So, like, they've trapped the plant here. But they're like, why couldn't they just kill the plant? They're like, well, maybe it would come back stronger. And they're like, maybe they made a deal with the plant. Maybe they worship the plant. Like, we don't know. So, very unclear.
Yes.
So they get out of the mine. There is no cell phone. They don't know what they're going to do. And let's see.
They all get drunk.
Eric, Stacy, and Amy get drunk. Well, Matthias and Jeff are out doing important manly things. Eric, at this point, keeps trying to get the knife from people so he can cut open his own flesh to get the plants out. And they're like, Eric, stop doing that, you dummy. You big dumb dummy. Yeah. And he's like, no, I need to get the plants out. And no one believes him that there are plants in his body.
Right.
So but then I think at one point they do cut him up and they find a plant growing in there, but they're like, we got it all out, it's fine. He's like, no, there are still plants here. And he's like, you need to get them all out. And they're like, if we cut you open more, you are going to die. There probably aren't any more plants. And he's like, there probably are.
There are plants. I can feel them, trust me.
Which, like, point Eric. Yeah, there definitely were more plants.
There was like 1 million plants inside of him.
It's just like all the plants. So the three of them get drunk. They start discussing what this will, like, the movie this will be turned into after they get rescued. And they say some insults in the process. And then Amy and Stacy get in, like, a straight up fight and start throwing insults at each other. And Stacy is calling Amy a bitch, and Amy is calling Stacy a slut, back and forth. So it's like, bitch, slut. And then they keep hearing it, but they're not talking. So it's like, the fucking plant is calling Stacy a slut because the fucking plant knows. The plant is shady, and it's like coming to read all these bitches. So Jeff comes back at this point and sees the three of them drunk, and he's like, what the fuck are you guys doing? And starts yelling at them, and the plant starts yelling back, and they're like, dude, the plant can mimic us. And he's like, well, you guys are idiots. Like, why are you drinking tequila when we're all dehydrated?
Yeah.
You big dum-dum-dums. Oh, and at one point, the plant mimics the fact that earlier Eric had said that in the movie version, Matthias would be turned into a villain, and he would be like the son of a Nazi or something. But the plant just starts shouting like Nazi, Nazi, Nazi at Matthias in Eric's voice, which like really gets to like, how much does this plant know about like
that is
our culture
good question.
That it like knows that would seriously bother him?
Yeah, like how did it know out of all of the words that Eric said that
it was like,
the
oh
insult?
Yeah, they called him a Nazi, like let's go. Like,
yeah, because assuming this is an ancient plant, I don't know, I guess maybe there was during the 1930s and 40s some just really political people digging around in the jungles of Mexico.
Well, I mean, I guess maybe if you go with the whole like Nazis who escaped to Argentina, like maybe some of them ran north to Mexico later and then got eaten by the plant. I don't know.
And then Magneto came and like killed them, but left the plant.
Yeah.
Just like
X-Men.
It was really Michael Fassbender the whole time.
So the plant is insulting everybody in each other's voices. And it starts to rain at some point, so they all go out to like drink some water.
Yeah.
And Amy, I think, like drinks too much too quickly and starts throwing up. And she and Jeff have like gotten in a fight at this point. And Jeff is like, usually when we get in a fight, I apologize because Amy is emotionally manipulative. She's a woman and she uses her woman tears to make me feel bad. So Amy's like crying and throwing up and like, Jeff, I need you to come help me. And he's like, no.
He turns his back to her.
Yeah, he turns his back on Amy. Goes to bed. Next morning, they get up. Amy's outside. She's dead. Plant followed her vomit trail into her mouth.
Yeah, and it smothered her.
By growing a fucking leaf over her mouth.
And keeping the vomit in, so she choked on it.
So she choked on her vomit.
Ugh.
So they're like, all right. Then we get this fun scene where Jeff, survival boy, is like, guys, I think we need to eat Amy. And everyone else is like, no, we're not doing that. Like, we're drawing the line.
Eric was like, all right.
Oh,
and
yeah, Eric was like, yeah, let's eat Amy.
Don't eat my friend.
So they eventually decide that they will not eat Amy, and instead they will bury her, but then they realize they can't really bury her because they don't have a shovel, which earlier the plant stole their shovel, also, side note. So they put her in a sleeping bag, and they're like, good enough. Guess that'll do. Which, like, obviously...
Out of sight, out of mind.
Right? They're like, it's probably fine. And then, like, the plant starts messing with Jeff by, like, throwing back the whole, like, Amy pleading with him to come help her right when the... Like, unbeknownst to him, what was happening when she was like, Jeff, come help me, was that the plant was, like, coming to kill her. So, if he had just gone over to check on her, maybe the plant wouldn't have been able to kill her. So the plant is throwing this back at Jeff because the plant is a crazy psycho and like very, very manipulative, which is very impressive for a plant.
Yeah. This plant must have watched Mean Girls.
It's really a very smart plant.
It's a queen bee,
like,
for sure.
Yeah, for sure. But also it's murdering a lot of people, so that's not so good. But you know, if it applied itself, it could really be a force of good in this world, I think. So Amy's dead. Then the plant like gets into the sleeping bag and eats Amy, but then it like mimics Amy's voice from the sleeping bag. So they think
like
that
makes
Amy's
the sleeping
alive.
bag sit up, and it's like Jeff.
Yeah, and they're like, oh my gosh, Amy, and they open it and her bones come tumbling
it's just
out.
like bones. And the plant is like, the tendrils are like, ha ha ha, gotcha.
Oh yeah, the plant learned to laugh also, so there's a lot of the plant laughing at them. The more I describe this book, the less scary it seems.
That's true. In the moment reading it is terrifying.
I promise while reading it, it was scary.
Yes.
So it rains and Stacy takes all of her clothes off and then goes in with like other clothes, and the plant starts like does like this full-on scene, like this radio drama of Matthias and Stacy having sex.
Yes. While Eric was sleeping in the tent and he wakes up to this noise.
To the plant mimicking this whole like long storyline of like Matthias and Stacy fucking.
Yeah, like a whole conversation and shit.
Yeah, like whole long thing. And he's like, Stacy, so you fucked Matthias? And she's like, no, this didn't happen. And he's like, the plant doesn't make things up, Stacy. I'm like, based on what?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, when did you guys decide that was a rule?
The plant can't lie.
Eric's just like, no, the plant never lies to me, Stacy. The plant is my one good friend here.
The plant is the only one I trust.
I only trust the plant. The plant has never hurt me, except for that time it ate my leg and also my chest.
The time it actively tried to kill me.
The time it's currently living inside my brain. Eric and Stacy get in a fight over this whole thing about whether or not the plant is actually mimicking a thing it really heard, or if it is making stuff up whole cloth, or if it's just cutting and pasting bits and pieces the way we do with this podcast when we say dumb things. And Eric is like they're like, we should go check on Pablo, but they're like, it's fine, we can hear him breathing, it's fine. I think Matthias is the one who realizes Pablo is dead, and like essentially the plant has been mimicking Pablo's breathing while they're fighting so that they think Pablo's fine, but while they're doing that it went out and smothered Pablo. Which
super
like cool. I mean, like, Pablo was living a miserable existence this whole time and really probably was very happy to be out of it. So so they kill Pablo, and then who's next? Oh, then the plant starts saying in German to Matthias, Heinrich is here.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, it's
where is Heinrich?
Yeah. Where is Heinrich? And then it says Heinrich is here. And then it says Heinrich is dead.
Yes.
Okay, so it starts like chanting that at Matthias, which is like super fucking creepy. Like, also it's in German, so that's like another added layer of it being creepy. Not saying that German is like automatically creepy, but like of the languages to chant things in, I feel like that's pretty high up there in the you know, it's like that and like French by small school children, I think, is probably the other like major one.
Yeah.
So, and Latin, obviously.
Oh yeah, Latin while you're like spewing pea soup vomit everywhere and convulsing.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So then it starts chanting, "Where is Jeff? Where is Jeff? Jeff is here. Jeff is here. Jeff is dead. Jeff is dead."
Yes.
And unbeknownst to this group, Jeff, who went down to the bottom of the hill during all of this, during the storm, he tried to make a run for it and then got shot through the neck by one of the Mayans and then dragged back into the plant and eaten by the plant. So that's fun.
Yeah.
So Jeff's dead now.
And like died a completely unremarkable death because no one even saw it. So,
right.
Sucks to be Jeff.
And the plant, like, brings his hat back.
Just borrowed his
up
hat.
the hill and, like, puts it on Pablo's corpse.
It's like, LOL, guys. Got you, friend.
Lol, got them both. So, there's all the creepy chanting. Mm-hmm. And then, let's see. Matthias and Stacy,
they go for a walk
by
on
themselves
the hill,
for a bit.
because Stacy doesn't want to be alone with Eric.
They go to find Jeff, right?
Yes. And they, like, pillage his corpse. So they go to find Jeff. And they go back up. And they come back up. And Eric... They hear the chanting.
They hear the chanting, where is Eric, where is Eric? Mm-hmm. And they go back up. And Eric has got a hold of the knife.
Oh my god. This was the worst. Ugh.
And has cut his body into ribbons and cut off his own ear and essentially flayed himself.
His body is
to try to get all of the plants out.
And it tells it from Eric's point of view too. Yeah. And it's just like so creepy, and it's like,
it's very gross.
I could feel it here, so I started cutting here, and then I felt it in my ear, so I cut off my ear, and like
the thing is, I don't know how much of it was actually like there was a plant there and how much of it was the plant making him think there was something there.
Yeah, like if there was just spores on his brain or something.
Right. Like, it was very unclear, which made it very, very creepy. So they come back up, and Matthias runs at Eric to try to, like, stop him or something.
Yeah, to try and grab the knife away.
And Eric accidentally stabs him in the heart.
Yeah.
So Matthias is out.
Great.
The one useful person. Mm-hmm. Stacy holds Eric as he's bleeding out, and he starts he's like saying something, and she's like, "What? What are you saying?"
Billy, I don't know Billy.
I don't know Billy. Who's Billy? And he's like, "No, you dum-dum. I'm saying kill me. Please.
Please kill me. I'm begging you."
Long drawn-out scene of him begging her to kill him. She finally does it, right?
Yeah, she just, like, stabs him in the chest.
Which, cool. Mm-hmm. And then she essentially is like, well, gonna die here.
She eats all the food.
She eats all the food, and then slits her wrists and let the plant eat her.
Yes. As she goes to the bottom of the hill
and
lets the Mayans watch her do it.
Yes, so that the Mayans know it's all clear and they can go home.
Yeah.
Which was nice of her.
I guess so. The Mayans were, like, starting to pack up and stuff while she was bleeding out, which is like,
yeah.
Rude.
Like, I feel like she meant to do it as, like, a see, this is what you've done thing, but they were definitely like, cool, we're done, we can go home.
Thanks, glad you guys are all dead.
Thanks for letting us know. Yeah. Glad you're dead.
See you next week,
we should do it again sometime. So you get, like, a graphic description of her bleeding out and the plant following the blood up her arm and then eating her and
dragging
till
her
she dies.
Into the mound. Yeah.
And that was gross. A lot of gross stuff. And then, little tag at the end, the other Greeks have met up with a group of 3 other tourists from Brazil. So again, nobody speaks each other's language. And they are following the map, and they get there, and before the Mayans can even, like, come out and stop them, they're halfway up the hill. And that's the end of the book.
Yeah.
And it was terrifying.
Yes. It was almost too much for me. I felt like a fool. I was like, I can handle this. I won't be scared, because, like, I've never really read a book before that scared me, to be honest. I
have, but they've been ghost books usually. Ghosts freak me out.
I will keep that in mind.
But yeah, this, like I said, it didn't, like, scare me in the sense of, like, I feel like I'm gonna have nightmares about it, but it was just really creepy and really gross.
Yeah, just, like, the dread really got to me of the whole, because you know nothing good is ever gonna happen, so
right.
Ugh, depressing.
But, and I mean, like, I feel like I've talked about this before, but, like, I do like horror movies, and I feel like in general it's harder to have horror novels because it's, when you're watching a movie, generally you don't stop halfway through and go do something else, which is, like, always an option with a book, and most people generally don't read a book all the way through, so it's very hard to, like, create that, like, atmosphere that can kind of overcome the fact that you're going to be stopping and starting.
Yeah. But
this book did that pretty well. Like, I did take breaks at a couple points, and I was still, like, I got right back into it, and it was still very creepy when I came back to it.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it helped that like the book didn't have chapters. It had like section breaks and stuff, but it didn't have like a point where you're like, okay, this is a solid stopping point, and I'll put down the book and walk away. It's kind of...
It was very scary. Very scary.
Mm-hmm.
I'm scared.
I don't like outside now.
I mean, I didn't like it before, so nothing about my life has changed. I do have some, like, pretty decent vines growing near my apartment.
Oh my God, kill them.
Kill
them before they insert themselves in your body.
Maybe they already did.
Oh my God. Oh my God, you guys can't see it, but Emma's like cutting off her face right now, and I just don't know what to do.
It's not me laughing, it's the vines.
This whole podcast was brought to you by Ancient Mayan
Vines.
Come visit us at our ancient ruins.
That was the one thing that did bother me a little bit about this book was it was very, especially, and it got less once we kind of got into it, but especially in the beginning, it was very like Dracula-esque in its like fear of the foreign sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
This group of 4 American kids who go to a foreign land, and there are foreign allies, but they're like the right type of foreigners. They're German foreigners,
white foreigners,
and the Greek foreigners, and like the Mayans aren't bad, but they're like
the ignorant foreigners.
They're not even like, because it's very clear that they know what's going on as it goes on, but it's like they're the ones who pose a danger because they are like unknowable fundamentally, and it's savages, right? Exactly. But it's like based on this false premise that they are fundamentally unknowable, when really what's happened is you haven't taken the time to figure out what they're trying to tell you. Mm-hmm. So I did find like the whole premise kind of ancient Mayan jungle surrounded by Mayans who are both a danger and also the antagonists of this greater foreign evil. Sort of like, it was a little bit to me. I was like,
yeah, I
don't know if I like this. But as it got into the cutting up your own flesh part, I was like, well, you know, who cares? It's creepy.
Yeah, and I think I guess because, okay, so we'll do opposite of Silver Linings then, because we kind of both like this book.
We both liked it.
Yeah, my non-Silver Lining, I guess, was the portrayal of both Amy and Stacy and how they were just like, so like we didn't really get into it too much, but I guess Stacy and Eric's relationship background was that Stacy would often get drunk and sleep around while she was in a committed relationship to Eric, and Eric would always like take her back because she would start crying and begging for forgiveness. And then like Amy was kind of the same way, like if she didn't want to go along with Jeff's plans, then she was considered to be prissy or a bitch, and then whenever they got into an argument, she would just resort to tears instead of talking about it and wait for Jeff to apologize to her. So it's kind of like they both had this personality of like the manipulative woman who can't do anything right, which
and I do think part of that is because he was, obviously the author was very aware of horror movie tropes, because they have the whole discussion about the horror movie tropes in the middle of this book. So I think to some extent he was doing that in order to play into that and then subvert it by having them not die in that order and whatever. But I also think there's something to be said about how the overall message of this book is that like everyone dies, but you need to die on your own terms, sort of. Or I guess because I think like that's kind of the thing, is that Amy's big fatal flaw was that she let Jeff do whatever he wanted and didn't really like put her foot down, and like that she was very like, she did argue with people at times, but she didn't really take control of things, and she was also the first one to die. So I think like there's something in that. And then Stacy, although like on the one hand she's described as a slut by the other characters and she's sexually promiscuous, she's also the one who does kind of go from the one who's just gonna do whatever everyone says and what everyone agrees to being more willing to enter conflict, I think. And then obviously at the end she's the only one who to some extent dies on her own terms. So like I definitely agree that I think they were, in general, very shallow.
Mm-hmm.
And all the characters were kind of pretty shallow to some extent. But I think they were shallow for a purpose. It was just that that doesn't take away from the fact that, like, it's still kind of an annoying trope to have.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's like, I don't know if the purpose was, or if there wasn't another way to do it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like a more, or a less punishing way of doing it. I don't know.
I just feel also it is kind of like, although we joked about like, oh, this was in 2006 or whatever, before everyone was woke. It's like, yeah, it was in 2006 before like Cabin in the Woods existed,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, did the whole deconstruct of that whole horror narrative sort of thing. So I do think it hasn't aged perfectly, but I think there is kind of something to be said about, yeah, this was written like over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was a different time.
2006 doesn't feel that long ago to me.
Right, but it was over 10 years ago.
Yeah, I was still in high school.
All right, so which of these characters did you relate to the most then, since we're kind of on the subject of the different characters?
I was a total Amy.
See, I thought I was Amy until they said the thing about, oh, Amy doesn't like to be alone. She always wants to be with other people. And then I was like, nope.
Oh, no, see, that's me. I would rather be with people doing something I don't like than alone doing something I like.
Yeah, I was like, no, I can't relate to this feeling. Please let me go. I will stay at the hotel room. Y'all deal with the plants.
You all go die, and
yeah.
I will fly back home on Friday.
Right. See ya, suckers. But yeah, I definitely like think Amy was, especially in the beginning, very like, I was like, yeah, okay, I get her, you know?
Yeah, minus the picture taking part, like that.
Yeah.
I feel like I would have been a little bit more respectful than that, but
like the fact there was like a line towards the beginning where she's talking about, or where they're talking about like how she and Jeff are both going to med school, but people just like listen to Jeff more and like automatically do what he says, and like they just think Amy's kind of being grumpy and like, you know, like, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I see what's going on here.
I feel you, Amy.
But I think of the, like, I wish I was Matthias, but no one is Matthias. He's too good at everything and way too self-actualized.
Yeah, he should have made it out at the end.
But I would say probably I'm most like Eric, in that like he's the funny one, and he's like, he doesn't really know what he's doing with his life. And he gets eaten by a plant, as I have been.
I was gonna say, if I didn't question that before, definitely am now.
Yeah.
So is there a book that you would recommend? So not that you would rather be reading, or maybe you would rather be reading it. Maybe if it's like a complete different book from this, but
I would say not really like that I would rather be reading, but that I would like continue from here, now that I've kind of been like, oh, maybe I don't hate horror novels quite so much. Essentially anything by Stephen King, because like kind of the main horror guy out there, but specifically I was going to go with Misery because I've never read it, but I just saw the play recently. And I was like, oh, this is actually kind of like, I'd be interested in reading this book. And it, you know, it's not really anything like this book that we just read, but it is in the same genre of, you know, horror type stuff.
Just like that creeping sense of dread as opposed to like slasher, like you said.
What about you? What would you have what will you be picking up next after reading this book?
Well, not that I specifically want to pick up next, but like if someone else read this book or heard our review and was like, it was so good I don't need to read the book, what can I read next? I would recommend Annihilation by Jeff VanderMeer, which is the first book in the Area X series, and also now a movie starring Natalie Portman and Oscar Isaac. It's a very good movie. But the book essentially is kind of along the same lines of, there is this biological horror thing kind of going on where this group of people go into Area X, and there has been some event that has kind of made this area alive, like the plant life, and the animals are different, and everyone that's gone in has kind of like disappeared and not come back. And so this group of women go in and they're trying to investigate what happened, and it's again not like outright scary horror, but definitely has a good creepy vibe to it. So if you are intrigued by this book, but maybe you don't want something as violent or as gory, then check out Annihilation.
All right, cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that pretty much wraps it up for this fortnight's episode, which means it's time to talk about what we're reading next. Normally we would do a challenge here if it wasn't time to rewind, because next fortnight we are going to be doing a high school rewind. That will be Anna's choice. So Anna, do you have a rewind book you would like us to...
Why, yes, Em, I do have a rewind book I would like us to read.
Have you chosen a rewind book that is not 700 pages long?
Yes, it is a much more reasonable length, though still a little bit longer than our normal reads.
Good. I would hate for us to have to re-record this segment after you first decided on a rewind book, only to discover it's 700 pages long.
Listen, I picked the wrong one out of the series. I'm sorry. This is the one I meant the whole time.
Yeah, definitely.
This is the one I meant the whole time, guys. This is the first time we've recorded this segment.
First time.
I have chosen for our enjoyment the book, The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. The second book in the
first time I'm
language.
hearing this.
I know you're shocked, but bear with me. I remember there was so much controversy over these books, and then I read it and I was like, that was very bad. His writing is not good. And like, I was probably 15 or 16 at the time for me to have noticed that at that age when I was quite dumb.
Yeah. There are no standards at that age.
Yeah. I was reading any garbage back in those days.
Well, for those of us out there who haven't heard of this fabulous book, would you like to read the Goodreads synopsis for The Da Vinci Code?
Yes.
And not Angels and Demons.
Not Angels and Demons, which is like twice the length of the Da Vinci Code for some reason.
And I'm not reading it.
I'll get you one of these days. An ingenious code hidden in the works of Leonardo da Vinci, a desperate race through the cathedrals and castles of Europe, an astonishing truth concealed for centuries, unveiled at last. While in Paris, Harvard symbologist Robert Langdon is awakened by a phone call in the dead of the night. The elderly curator of the Louvre has been murdered inside the museum, his body covered in baffling symbols. As Langdon and gifted French cryptologist Sophie Neveu sort through the bizarre riddles...
Yep, that's how that's said.
I'm very good at French. They are stunned to discover a trail of clues hidden in the works of Leonardo da Vinci, clues visible for all to see and yet ingeniously disguised by the painter. Even more startling, the late curator was involved in the Priory of Sion, a secret society whose members included Sir Isaac Newton, Victor Hugo, and Da Vinci, and he guarded a breathtaking historical secret. Unless Langdon and Neveu can decipher the labyrinthine puzzle, labyrinthine, there's a lot of hard words in this, while avoiding the faceless adversary
Get through it.
who shadows their every move, the explosive, ancient truth will be lost forever.
That pretty much wraps it up for this fortnight's episode. As always, you can tweet at us at HateReadCast on Twitter or email us hatereadcast@gmail.com. So make sure you send us a message if your brain has been taken over by a ancient plant monster.
Or if
we'd love to hear from you.
If you got any spooky stories to share with us.
Yeah. Thanks as always to Ben Cope for the use of our theme song. You can check out his info in the description box below.
And if you want to, we would love it if you subscribe to us on whatever platform you happen to find this podcast. And if it was on iTunes, please leave us that 5-star review. We would appreciate it very much. And in the words of Scott B. Smith, there was always something odd to feel if only you stopped and searched for it.
Ooh, spooky.
Spooky, scary. Hold on. Angels and Demons. Did I mean Da Vinci Code? Shit.
I don't know.
Let me
I don't
see
know what you meant.
which one is shorter. One of them is like...
I think Angels and Demons is shorter.
Let me see. Because the Kindle version of Angels and Demons is 736 pages.
How much is it?
736 pages.
Oh, shit, man. We're not doing that.
So it must have been Da Vinci Code. Shit. Now I have to re-record it. Well, are you okay with doing Da Vinci Code then?
Well, if the choice is between Da Vinci Code and 700 pages of Angels and Demons, yes, we're doing Da Vinci Code.
I just knew I wanted to read a Dan Brown book, and I'm sorry. Like, when I talked, I thought I had gotten the right book, and I didn't have the right book. So.
Anna.